Number 1. Julius Caesar was not an emperor. Never was. He was a Roman general, senator, and eventually got the title dictator in perpetuity. But Rome at that point was still officially a republic. The office of Roman emperor did not exist yet. It was invented 17 years after Caesar got stabbed 23 times by his adopted great-nephew Augustus, who became the first actual emperor in 27 BC. So every movie where they call Julius Emperor Caesar, every history teacher who let it slide, you've been calling him by a job title he never held. Imagine calling Elon Musk the president. Same energy. Number 2. Roman statues were not that clean, serene, bare white marble look you're picturing. They were painted. Loudly. Red skin tones, blue eyes, gold hair, purple robes, pink cheeks, the works. We've found the paint residue. We've done chemical analysis. An actual Roman statue looked less like a museum piece and more like a life-size wax figure at Madame Tussauds. The elegant white marble Rome aesthetic that got recycled into every white marble government building in the Western world, that's a paint fade problem, not a design choice. Romans thought bare marble looked cheap. Number 3. The vomitorium was not a puke room. It was a stadium exit. That's it. The word comes from the Latin vomere, meaning to spew forth, and it referred to the corridors that spat spectators out of the Colosseum after the games. The whole Romans stumbled into a side room to throw up between courses. A story got invented mostly by a British writer named Aldous Huxley in a 1923 novel called Antic Hay, where he misused the word for laughs. Now, it lives forever. In every children's book about Rome. Aldous, buddy, look what you did. Number 4. Nero did not fiddle while Rome burned. For starters, the fiddle wasn't invented until about the 10th century. So Nero playing one is like your grandpa DJing his own wedding in 1942 on a Bluetooth speaker. Second, Nero wasn't even in Rome when the fire started. He was 30 miles away in Antium. When the news reached him, he came running back, opened his own gardens as shelter for the homeless, and organized emergency food relief. And after all that, the historians who hated him, mainly Tacitus and Suetonius, writing decades later, decided the man definitely played a stringed instrument that didn't exist yet. Number 5. The Roman Empire did not fall in 476 AD. That's the year the western half fell. The eastern half, headquartered in Constantinople, still calling itself the Roman Empire, still speaking Greek and Latin, still running Roman law, kept going. For another 977 years, until 1453. So when your history teacher says
Rome fell in 476,
they're leaving out roughly a millennium. Number 6. Roman gladiators did not fight to the death every single match. They were highly trained professional athletes with sponsors, schools, and personal doctors. They were valuable investments. A dead gladiator earned zero money at the next games. Estimated mortality over a full career of 3 to 5 years was around 20 to 40%. Brutal, sure, but nowhere near one bout. One death. Most fights ended when one guy raised a finger to yield. Also, some gladiators were volunteers, free men, sometimes senators, who signed up for glory, prize money, or to pay off gambling debts. Number 7. And speaking of gladiators, thumbs down did not mean death. Probably. This one is genuinely contested. The whole modern thumbs down equals die thing comes from a single 1872 French painting by Jean-Léon Gérôme called Paulus Verso, which literally just means turned thumb, and doesn't specify which way. Some historians now argue thumbs up meant kill, and thumbs down meant spare. One painting from the 1870s rewrote roughly 2,000 years of hand gestures. Number 8. Cleopatra was not Egyptian, not by ethnicity. She was Macedonian Greek, a descendant of Ptolemy, one of Alexander the Great's generals, whose family had ruled Egypt for about 300 years by the time Cleopatra was born. That entire ruling dynasty spoke Greek, worshipped Greek-adjacent gods, and mostly refused to bother learning Egyptian. Cleopatra was the first of her family, in 3 centuries, to actually learn the local language of the place she ruled. Number 9. And Cleopatra was not the seductress from every movie. That image came from Octavian, later Emperor Augustus, running the greatest smear campaign in ancient history to justify going to war with Mark Antony. Octavian's PR team painted her as a witchy foreign temptress who bewitched noble Roman men and threatened the empire. In real life, Cleopatra was a highly educated, multilingual queen, running political alliances with the two most powerful men in the world for reasons of state. She wasn't seducing them into pillow talk. She was cutting deals. The beauty thing was a marketing move to erase her as a politician. Number 10. Romans did not wear togas every day. The toga was a formal ceremonial garment. For adult male Roman citizens, only think tuxedo, not sweatpants. It was heavy, unwieldy, and honestly kind of a pain to keep on. Romans mostly wore tunics, comfortable knee-length shirts the entire rest of the time. In later Rome, togas became so associated with high status that the only women allowed to wear them were prostitutes, and women divorced for adultery as a mark of public shame. Number 11. The Roman salute. The stiff, straight-armed thing was not Roman. We have zero surviving Roman art depicting it. No statue, no fresco, no coin. It was actually invented by an 18th century French painter named Jacques-Louis David for a dramatic canvas about Roman brotherhood, then reused across neoclassical art for the next century, then adopted by early 20th century movies about Rome, and then copied by 20th century fascist movements who thought they were connecting to the ancient world. Number 12. Roman gods were not just Greek gods with new names. This one is drilled into every school kid. Zeus is Jupiter, Athena is Minerva, Poseidon is Neptune. Done. They're the same. No. They had different origins, different personality traits, different rituals. Roman religion started with Etruscan and Latin roots long before the Greek makeover, and even after Rome absorbed Greek mythology as a cultural upgrade. They didn't just copy-paste. Jupiter wasn't Zeus in a toga. He was a whole other deity, more concerned with law, oaths, and the state, less concerned with turning into swans to seduce mortals. Zeus was chaotic wine dad. Jupiter was HR. Number 13. That clean, dramatic fall of Rome moment, it barely happened. What actually happened in 476 was that a Germanic general named Odoacer, who, by the way, was Roman educated and Roman employed, walked into the room where a 16-year-old puppet emperor named Romulus Augustulus was sitting, told him to abdicate, gave him a pension, and shipped him off to retire in Naples. That's it. No fire. No destruction. Odoacer then sent the imperial crown back to Constantinople with a note basically saying, "We don't need two of these, you keep it." Life in Rome the next morning was the same. Latin still Latin. Law still law. Church still standing. Eastern Empire still fully operational and still calling itself Roman. The whole cinematic fall of Rome narrative comes almost entirely from a British historian named Edward Gibbon, who between 1776 and 1789 wrote a 6-volume book called The History of the Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, which needed a dramatic ending to justify being 6 volumes. So he picked 476, called it The Fall, and every textbook since has just gone with it. The Fall of Rome is a marketing decision by an 18th century academic who needed page count. Let that sit on the table for a beat. Number 14. Caligula did not actually make his horse a consul. Probably. The story comes from Suetonius, who wrote it about 80 years later and hated Caligula. Modern historians increasingly think what actually happened was that Caligula threatened to make his horse a consul as a public insult to the Roman senators, as in, I could put a literal horse in your job and it would do it better. Aggressive dinner party humor by an unstable emperor. Number 15. Christians were not systematically fed to lions on the daily. That image of packed Colosseum crowds cheering as roaring lions chased robed Christians around the arena massively overdramatized. Persecution of Christians in Rome did happen, but it was sporadic, geographically patchy, and mostly under specific emperors like Nero and Diocletian in short bursts. Most Christians in most of the Roman Empire, most of the time, lived normal lives, ran shops, and paid taxes. The constant Christian slaughter narrative got pumped up centuries later, mostly by Christian writers who wanted more martyrs on the resume. Number 16. Barbarians were not wild savages, wearing bear skins and screaming in a forest. The word barbarian originally just meant person who doesn't speak Greek or Latin. That's the entire definition. Many so-called barbarians were educated, allied with Rome, and served in the Roman army. Some rose to run entire legions. Odoacer, the guy from number 13, who technically ended the Western Empire, was Roman educated and Roman employed. The whole civilization versus barbarians framing is Roman propaganda for anyone who wasn't yet paying Roman taxes. Number 17. Roman was not an ethnicity. It was a legal citizenship status. After the Antonine Edict of 212 AD, every free man in the entire Roman Empire, from Britain to Egypt to Syria to North Africa, was legally a Roman citizen. So a Roman could be a farmer in Gaul, a merchant in Alexandria, a poet in Carthage, or a soldier in Damascus. The fantasy of Rome as a single ethnic group in white togas, standing around fountains speaking Latin, that's a European 19th century painting fantasy. Number 18. Roman soldiers were not paid in salt. Yes, the English word salary comes from the Latin sal, meaning salt. No, that does not mean legionaries were paid in salt bags. They were paid in coin silver denarii, mostly, later gold, and quite a lot of it, plus land at retirement if they survived 25 years. So no, your paycheck's linguistic ancestor is not a spice rack. Number 19. Roman roads were not perfectly straight. That map of Europe crisscrossed with laser-straight Roman ruler marks mostly a myth. Roman roads went straight where the terrain let them, and went around mountains, marshes, difficult landowners, and inconvenient rich people's estates the exact same way modern roads do. And the famous "all roads lead to Rome" that only really applied to the roads inside the immediate Italian peninsula, a road in northern Britain wasn't sending you to Rome. It was sending you to a garrison so you could shiver about it. Number 20. The Roman Empire technically never ended. After Constantinople fell in 1453, the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II immediately declared himself Kaiser I Rum, Caesar of Rome. Every Russian Tsar took their title, Tsar, directly from Caesar, and Moscow started calling itself the Third Rome. The German word for emperor, Kaiser, is literally just how Caesar was pronounced in classical Latin, with a German spelling. The Holy Roman Empire Germanic dudes who thought they were Rome's spiritual successor didn't officially dissolve until Napoleon shut it down in 1806. So, the last person to claim the title of Roman Emperor did so about 1800 years after Augustus started the job. Rome didn't fall. Rome went into franchise mode. Rome was messier, more diverse, more painted, more paperwork heavy, and lasted about 1,000 years longer than the version in your head. That's all for today. Go correct a relative. Till next time, thanks for watching.